The White House intensifying pressure on the Ukrainian president to agree to a key U.S. demand.
According to various reports, Ukraine has now received an improved offer on a rare earth minerals deal where the U.S. would take a 50% stake. President Trump was asked about it at the White House earlier tonight. Take a listen.
I think we're pretty close. I think they want it, and they feel good about it. And it's significant. It's a big deal, but they want it, and it keeps us in that country, and they're very happy about it. But it's we get our money back. This should have been signed long before we went in. This should have been signed by Biden, but Biden didn't know too much about what he was doing. The war should have never happened.
Breaking news from Ukraine as you are taking a live look at Ukrainian President Zelensky as he is answering questions from the media, although he is speaking his native tongue. This comes as he just said that he is willing to give up his position if it meant peace in Ukraine, saying that he would exchange his departure for Ukraine's entry into NATO. Zelensky also sharing that he wants to see President Trump as a partner to Ukraine and more than simply a mediator between Kyiv and Moscow, saying, quote, "I really want it to be more than just mediation. That is not enough." This is an annual forum that happens with top government officials and the military. This comes as tomorrow marks 3 years of the war between Ukraine and Russia. And this also comes as preparations are underway for a face-to-face meeting between President Trump and Russian President Putin. That is according to Russia's deputy foreign minister. Now, the deputy foreign minister saying, quote, "The question is about starting to move towards normalizing relations between our countries, finding ways to resolve the most acute and potentially very, very dangerous situations, of which there are many, Ukraine among them." He also said that efforts to organize a meeting are in the early stages and saying that it will take the most intensive preparatory work, adding that U.S. and Russian envoys could meet within the next 2 weeks to pave the way for future talk among senior officials. Russian and U.S. representatives meeting in Saudi Arabia have already agreed to start working towards the ending of the war in Ukraine and also improving their diplomatic and economic ties, as Zelensky has stated he would like to be part of these discussions. Now, after the meeting, Secretary of State Marco Rubio shared that the two sides agree for the most part to pursue 3 goals: to restore staffing at their respective embassies, to create a high-level team to support Ukraine peace talks, and to explore closer relations and economic cooperation, saying that the talks, which were attended by Secretary Rubio's Russian counterpart and other senior Russian and U.S. officials, marked the beginning of a conversation, and more work does need to begin. Now, no Ukrainian officials were at this meeting in Saudi Arabia, and that is why Ukrainian President Zelensky says that his country would not accept any of the outcomes from those talks since Kyiv did not take part. Today, just moments ago, he has shared that he would be willing to step away from his position if it meant peace in Ukraine, saying that he would exchange his departure for Ukraine's entry into NATO. Also adding that he would like to see President Trump as a partner to Ukraine and more than simply a mediator between Kyiv and Moscow.
Tomorrow marks 3 years, an anniversary of the start of this war. Russia apparently is planning to declare victory tomorrow. There are propagandists who say they're going to share messages that the West essentially abandoned Ukraine. I mean, how does the U.S. and will it counter that messaging if that's a victory lap Russia tries to take?
Well, Vladimir Putin can attempt to take all the victory laps he wants. The reality is the president is focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's stopping the killing and the destruction across Ukraine and ensuring an enduring peace. So both sides are going to make a lot of claims, and the president has very directly engaged both sides in real time. There's bilateral negotiations with Russia, which, by the way, no one else has been able to do. Joe Biden was never able to bring Russia to the table for actual peace talks. Only Donald Trump. He's the only man in the world that would be able to do that. He's also engaging directly with Ukraine. There's going to be bumps in the road in these conversations when you're seeking a historic peace. And ultimately, our role is to do just that, and President Trump is doing that. So I don't need to get into the characterization of, we know who invaded who. We understand the stakes of this game. America, more than any other country in the world, has invested in helping Ukraine defend itself. Now it's time for peace, and that's what the president is dedicated to.
You have said previously that Putin is a maniac. You've called him a war criminal. How would you describe him today?
He's someone we're negotiating with to end a conflict. What I said as a private citizen has no bearing on what, as Secretary of Defense, my job is as far as the characterization of a regime. I need to make sure our troops are ready. I need to be able to give advice to the president vis-a-vis future military aid, the posture in Europe. But I'm not driving these negotiations. I mean, Mike Walls and the Secretary of State and the Vice President and others are directly involved in these discussions. We're going to get to peace. But what the Defense Secretary thinks about Vladimir Putin is more or less irrelevant in this. I want peace. I want the killing to stop. I'm going to play my role. And Donald Trump is leading it, and we're closer today than ever before.
Okay, so a couple of deals trying to come together here. One that would end the conflict, but a separate one with the U.S. and Ukraine potentially about rare earth minerals, security guarantees that we may provide them in that scenario. So there's that. There are also these foreign leaders from France and the U.K. coming this week to the White House. Alex talked about them potentially putting together a 30,000-strong force of peacekeepers. Is there any scenario, whether it's the rare earth minerals agreement, whether it's this force that the Europeans want to stand up, any scenario in which U.S. troops are on the ground in Ukraine?
No, we've been very clear about that. U.S. troops will not be on the ground in Ukraine. But an economic partnership is important, and an important commitment to Ukraine. My message in Brussels, which ruffled some feathers, and that's okay. That my point there was to inject realism into the conversation, was, hey, on the continent, Europe should lead. So it's very encouraging to see European leaders saying, we're prepared to step in Ukraine and help provide security guarantees. We welcome that, and we hope they step up and do it.
The White House intensifying pressure on the Ukrainian president to agree to a key U.S. demand.
According to various reports, Ukraine has now received an improved offer on a rare earth minerals deal where the U.S. would take a 50% stake. President Trump was asked about it at the White House earlier tonight. Take a listen.
I think we're pretty close, yeah. I think they want it, and they feel good about it, and it's significant, it's a big deal, but they want it, and it keeps us in that country, and they're very happy about it. But it's we get our money back. This should have been signed long before we went in. This should have been signed by Biden, but Biden didn't know too much about what he was doing. The war should have never happened.
Joining us now is the former Deputy National Security Advisor, KT McFarland. KT, great to see you. Happy Friday to you. Let me just start with this. Sure. We saw a tweet earlier today from Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, who is a key envoy here to try to resolve this war for the Trump administration. Much warmer rhetoric toward the Ukrainians, toward Zelensky from Kellogg. Of course, Trump has been really going tough after Zelensky. Is this a little good cop, bad cop, trying to get them to sign that document?
It's good cop, bad cop, but they're in the negotiation. We're just seeing the negotiation play out in public is the difference. You know, this is Zelensky's idea in the first place of why don't you come, America, develop our rare earth minerals, which you need. You don't have any. We have a lot. And President Trump said, yeah, terrific idea. I'll give you a proposal. And then Zelensky didn't like the proposal, so now they're coming back with another proposal. But at the end of the day, I think President Trump will get what he wants. And, you know, the Ukrainians should be embracing this because, as the president just said, you should want America in to develop your natural resources and your rare earth minerals because that puts American presence, economic presence in the country. A lot of the economic development would be in the eastern part of Ukraine, closer to the Russian border. So if you're thinking, well, should we put troops there? You're not going to put American troops there. But if you put American businessmen, American miners, American engineers there, it is such a deterrent. Vladimir Putin is not going to invade Ukraine and kill Americans if they're standing right in the middle of an economic development. I mean, frankly, it's a brilliant idea. Not only would we get our money back, and have a great thriving industry for the United States. It's a great deal for Ukraine because we develop their rare earth minerals. And frankly, because it puts Americans on the ground, American engineers and businessmen and miners, it's just the best of all.